to address gun control? You want to address opiate? You want to address depression? And so you want to address everything that's on the tip of the tongue of everybody in society? Let's get to parenting right now. My friends, if you're listening right now, if you want to get to the 5 things that all of us are talking about, gun control, drugs, suicide, let's get to the way we're fucking parenting kids in this country, which has gotten way, way, way out of hand.
Gary, I want to thank you for having me on your show here. In your office here in this wonderful studio. Dan and I are fans. I know we do a lot of shows in regards to parenting and including youth sports, and I think there is some type of a connection to how successful you've been and how hard you've worked. We'll get into some of the show's topics here in a second, but your story and successes in the corporate world are unprecedented. So to be able to be here with you today is special, and hopefully we can connect what Dan and I's vision of how we wanted to talk to you and how we wanted to get this show rolling. We can make it work. But first, yes. Hello, thank you.
Thank you for that intro. I appreciate it. And the subject matter that you guys are tackling is something that I'm unbelievably passionate about, because literally the other day, my friend said, if you had to start a business all over again, right now, like completely new around something that you were doing nothing with, what would you do? And I said, I would start a youth sports business. And he said, why? And I said, because the delusion at the parent level around where they think their kid is going to end up in professional sports is so ludicrous that there's an obnoxious amount of money to be made.
Yeah.
And it was my point of actually saying something negative around something that I'm concerned by.
Yeah.
And it speaks to fake environments and other things I'm passionate about. So I'm super excited about this. I've never done anything in a meaningful, youth sports podcast or platform media wise, not to mention my ridiculous passion around sports cards and my thesis that, proper football and soccer cards are the most underpriced in a 10-year window makes this entire timing really fun for me too. So thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, no worries. I go out to different youth clubs around the country. I'm actually heading out to Seattle this weekend and then across to Chicago in a couple of weeks. Clubs are asking me all the time to come out, not only to put on some clinics regarding training sessions for different age groups, but also to talk to parents. And the reason Dan and I started this show, Gary, just so you know, is because obviously with my son's successes throughout the past 5-6 years and how quickly he kind of climbed the ladder to successes with soccer, both here and in Europe. Parents want to know if there was a secret formula.
Of course they do. And every day I get asked.
Yeah.
That everybody who's had any level of success, either being the architect of or the actual person of, that is going to be questions in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm. And I try to tell them, there really isn't a secret formula, but you do have to be careful in regards to your children and how, through their sports, how you're handling your day-to-day relationship with them. So for me, and Dan and I have done already a few shows in regards to this. One of our most popular shows, we got a lot of listeners really involved, was it started as overcoaching, because as a coach of youth sports, you can make winning really the only thing.
Yes.
However, we have to remember throughout the process as a youth coach that we're trying to build fine young men and fine young women for the future, because very few will end up making it as professional players. We know the percentages are extremely small. And then the show kind of turned to overparenting, because I've seen so many young athletes that I've coached in my experiences both here and abroad that have such great talent as young players. However, the parents handle them in such a manner that they lose that love.
Yep.
You know, they lose that belief in what they can do and confidence. And it's a sad state because as a parent, that's what you should be instilling in your young athletes. You know,
unfortunately for the world right now, this is not just relegated to the sports world.
Correct, and that's why we have you
music.
here. It's great. Yep.
And by the way, ironically, the great safe haven for a long time was entrepreneurship. By its nature of being outside the framework, entrepreneurship kids that gravitated towards it had a little bit of a free reign because there wasn't an obvious North Star of being that. And now, unfortunately, entrepreneurship has gotten so cool that parents are pushing their kids into entrepreneurship.
Correct. Yeah.
And taking the fun or the merit out of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And so in a weird way, a lot of the attention I have as a pseudo internet famous entrepreneur is making me feel like I have to give back to the game of entrepreneurship and say, hey parents, wait a minute, all that stuff I make fun of around academia and sports and music, well, that's now starting to happen here. Like, for example, I have no emotion towards my kids being entrepreneurs. I just want them to be as happy and into their thing as I was around my thing. But that's a very difficult thing because way too many parents are insecure and they get their own self-esteem out of their children's accomplishments. It has nothing to do with their kids. It has to do with them.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of what we talked about during this episode was, the kids are treated almost like corporate executives. Every day of the week, there's a function.
That's right.
And we lose that free play that, when I grew up, I'm a Long Island guy. I grew up on the island. Yeah. It was just get out and go play, and I played soccer on a soccer team, but it was 2 days a week, 3 days a week. But that was it, and it just seems now parents are putting a lot of pressure on their kids.
Because their kids are a byproduct of them. They have not detached themselves from their kids' accomplishments as a reflection on themselves.
Correct.
The end.
Okay, let's wrap it up here.
Dan, thanks for having me on. I mean, Dan, what do you just to get you in here because I know you're on the phone and I want to be conscious of that as well. Like when you hear me say that, obviously you consume my content. Like it really, unfortunately, ironically is that simple.
Sure, and I think what's interesting, we did a kind of call it a hot topics from the world of soccer episode where we talked about the college admission scandal where basically parents were paying coaches maybe, big money, $100,000 to list their player or their son or daughter as a recruit and help them get into the college.
I'm aware.
And talk about, I think that's the kind of the...
And I remember that scandal, and everybody was feeling bad for the kids that couldn't get in because somebody else took a spot because it's that classic, they used money to suppress. And I was driving around, I'll never forget it, I'm hearing it on the radio the first time on the way to the airport at 6 o'clock in the morning, look at my phone, the driver had the radio on, and I hear it, and my mind went actually not to the kid that didn't get into USC or another school and then had to go somewhere else. I said, oh my God, that kid who that parent did it for consciously and subconsciously understands that their parent believes they're such a fucking loser that they're incapable of being a human in society, and they are now crippled in perpetuity.
Unbelievable.
Right.
Unbelievable.
People think that they're doing a favor for their kids. They're doing a favor for themselves. So at the cocktail party, at the country club, they can say their kid got into this. What they're doing for their kid is that they've completely destroyed their confidence graph. There's somebody who debated me the other day on social media that social media is the problem with suicide and depression amongst the youth. And I was laughing in my soul, crying actually, of no, it's not. It's the insecurity of the current parenting infrastructure that is destroying merit and confidence amongst our children's out of their own insecurities to fit in with the Joneses at their parent level, not at the kid level.
Yeah. It's, and I, when we were doing that show, I was literally like you are, the emotions, the sickness of how can a parent, be so stupid, so so naive to the fact.
Selfish.
Yeah, it's
Brother,
selfish.
brother, selfish.
And regardless
Yeah.
of their confidence, you're just completely distorting their reality that actions have consequences, and if you don't do the appropriate things to get into that school, then you don't get to get in. And at the end of the day, that failure is okay.
No, that
but
failure
now
is
you've got to.
that failure is the
Yeah.
guys. Everybody I know that's like almost everybody that I think is successful and happy, because that's a very important part of this.
Correct.
Sure.
Built it on the foundation of adversity. Adversity is the best. And we have completely demonized losing in
And
American
that's a
culture.
great thing that's a great thing that youth sports does, is it provides you opportunities to not just win, but also to lose. And if you remove that from the game, if you remove losing and failure from the game, I think you're absolutely robbing the kid of incredible life lessons.
And all that's happening now is an incredible movement towards eliminating merit out of sports, either through literally 7th place trophies or not keeping score, which is ludicrous,
That is. Yeah.
to parents not even allowing their kids to be on teams that aren't super teams to ever even have the potential to have a loss.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like, it's so crazy that the only thing I want for my 2 children who are 10 and 7 is to constantly lose. My son cries every day a ton if I'm in his presence because we're competing in something and I'm not interested in letting him win.
Yeah.
Now, this is very important. I don't do it in a way that suppresses him from wanting to do it anymore.
Correct. Yeah.
But here's the reality. Creating fake environments and delusion for your kids, it really, really sets them up for tough. So I'd rather my kid not want to play basketball anymore because he couldn't beat me, because he's going to realize that's like I'd rather that truly than him going through life thinking he's good at something that he's not. I mean, like, I just don't know what else to say. In a life of choices, that's my choice.
Gary, I was the same way raising Christian. I wouldn't let him win. Like
God, it's so
basketball and horse and whatever. But unfortunately, he eventually beat me.
Yeah. By the way, I went through that with my 11-year younger brother. I think I won the first 287 one-on-one games.
Yeah.
But the second he broke through, he went like 280 in a row. And it finally took only 5 years ago when I got into better shape and he finally got a little bit out of shape for me to get my first W back on the board. Yeah. So, I get nothing's the worst than when, by the way, that's also another thing. Like, I want to get all these win on now because he's going to beat the crap out of me at some point, and I want to make sure I've got
that
some
is true.
Right?
Yeah,
When we look at final records before I go into the ground, I'd like to be on the plus side of this.
That's funny. Yeah. So Gary, just going back, we talked about every time, we during this episode that I'm referring back to, just the kids having so much going on during the week and really not a chance to get out and experience
the
free play.
Over-programming.
Yeah, and I just think that's where I became creative, and that's where I learned, on the street.
Yeah.
We'd play, street hockey, or my brothers and I would play wiffle ball.
Yeah, of course.
And I see that completely now taken away from our youth through sports. Everything is structured.
Yep.
Everything is, I got to be on the best team. I got to be, and it's almost manufactured in a way where they're not ever allowed to fail or allowed to find solutions.
That's right.
On their own.
That's right. It's the corporatization of sports in America at the youth level. It's not super complicated. That's exactly right. Now, when you think about that, for the kid who's destined to be great, there's a lot of upside of being brought up in 2019 versus 1979, in that they do get some value out of that. The problem is that's 0.001%.
Correct. Yeah.
And so for the 99.999 other percent, we're creating all these insecurities that manifest in adulthood. Listen, this is the most important conversation in America, not in other places, in America, because America is the empire of this generation, soon to be China. It's already been written, but for now. And this is why empires fail, because Rome and Genghis Khan and Europe, they all do the same thing. They go through such a long period of prosperity that parents worry about dumb shit. Mm-hmm. You know why you and I could free play or whatever we had? Our parents were worried about other shit.
Yes.
You know, I just looking at your age, knowing I was an immigrant, my parents didn't worry about a fight at school or what medal I was getting because they were putting food on the table. Like, it was a different generation.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Our parents are micromanaging the fuck out of everything. Get the fuck out of your kid's business.
Let him fail.
Let him fucking live. Let him breathe.
Let him breathe. Yeah. Vis, anything to add to that?
I mean, Gary, you mentioned that kind of this structure or whatever is good for kind of that kid who's destined to be great. And I think, you know, Christian, Marc's son, was that 0.01% or is that 0.01%. And yet, even with him, I think Marc would be the first to tell you nothing was overdone. We actually at one point talked about calling this show Slurpees and Doritos after a 60-minute interview that Marc and Kelly Pulisic did, where they're like, "What special diets did you have them on?" And they're like, "Well, after games, we gave them Slurpees and Doritos."
Here's where I'm going with that. And it's fun to talk about soccer, proper football in this context. Listen, LeBron, Christian, Mike Tyson, like things are written at some level. Like, talent is talent, serendipity, a million variables. Listen, there are other alpha parents, athletes that get together, like, without knowing any of the story, which I don't know, knowing that it was a mindset between you and your wife that was the biggest variable, because athletic parents get married all the time and their kids don't have math. Like, by the way, things that happen in Christian's neighborhood, classmates, like culture. There's so many variables that go into this. What I will say is, you know, when you look at South America, Europe, clearly when you get the luxury of getting like super teams, you know, for everybody who didn't learn a weird move that was never done before in the cul-de-sac of Long Island, on the flip side, they get taught core skills. So there is always trade-offs with free play versus academy life. Mm-hmm. The reality is, and for everybody who's listening, because I have a feeling a lot of people don't know who I am who are listening, my brother and I are business partners in the marketing firm, VaynerMedia, that we're at right now. He left 3 years ago, and he and I run a company called Vayner Sports, and we represent NFL players in Jerry Maguire. We are agents in the NFL. We have 27 national football players right now that we do their contracts and their marketing for. I'm deeply in the sports business. My great ambition is to buy the New York Jets, and has always been. I am flabbergasted how much professional sports is around mentality. I'm taken aback mm-hmm. because listen, I have the greatest mentality of all time, thanks to my parents and circumstance. I'm not a professional athlete, even though I want it to be. So talent, of course, matters. You got to be fast, strong, but wow. It's unbelievable how much this is a mental game, and all the parents right now think this is a skill game, and they're misplaying the mental game at such a level.
Yeah, I mean,
and I apologize. Where it really hurts my feelings is they're raising unhappy humans. They are going to go through this 99.99. Let's get the math for everybody in their head. 99.9999. The amount of parents right now with a kid who's 9 years old that thinks that kid is going to be a professional athlete is 25 to 50%. The amount that will be is 0.0001. In that delta is enormous unhappiness being created.
Yeah.
For the kid. Which then later manifests in the relationship of the kid with the parent. The level of resentment that is being created for 28-year-old Ricky, who's not going to make it at scale in this country, is devastating. And people are throwing money at it and politics at it, and it's fucked up.
Oh, it's crazy. You know, I work for, you know, a lot of youth soccer now in this country, Gary, is pay for play. So parents are paying enormous fees for these kids to play. But they're not letting them to grow. So, you know, after a game, I know Dan has as well. I've noticed, you know, witnessed parents berating their kids after a game because they feel they didn't play well. Yeah. And then they get in the car and they're in the back seat and they're still berating them on the way home.
Yeah, I know.
Why is that athlete going to want to come back to practice the next day or get in the car with you again?
It has nothing to do with what they think is right. It's they have massive insecurities as parents, and they have failed in a lot of areas in their life, and they view their child as a item, as a product that may get them recognition from keeping up with the Joneses. This is not complicated. This is somebody berating a child who feels inferior to their neighbor because they have a bigger pool. And now they're trying to use their child to be better at soccer than the neighbor's kid so that they can have their insecurities scratched and feel better because they weren't better than a neighbor in getting a pool. This is not complicated.
It's not complicated, but I'm glad, that we can discuss this and just continue to hope people listen.
Well, this is why I wanted to do this podcast so badly.
What's kind of the solution both for the parent, that is berating the kid, and then also on a bigger scale culturally?
I'll give it to you. It's what the three of us are doing right now. The fact that we are three men at this moment who've decided to use our time to make content, and the solution to everything in the history of mankind is communication. Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Thomas Edison, the Beatles, John F. Kennedy, Barack Obama. Why has soccer gotten bigger in America? FIFA, the video game, and ESPN's deal with World Cup and then integrating it into SportsCenter and Top 10 plays. And NBC Sports' European... this is not complicated. The answer to this solution is that the three of us are talking about this in a way that nobody was talking about 10 years ago. Do you know what level of pressure I am putting on parenting with my platform?
Yeah, imagine.
Do you understand that somebody's driving right now, cliche, high net worth, Westchester, Beverly Hills, Long Island, driving to work right now, listening to the show because they admire the two of you, by the way, and they want their kid to be like Christian, and they're driving, and now they're hearing a loudmouth Jersey kid stick holes in their life. I am putting a spotlight on the worst thing that they're doing in their life right now, and they subconsciously right now are listening to this podcast and consciously they don't like me. Like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
It's cause I'm poking them at the thing that they're doing the worst. The reason I do it is because somebody right now that's listening to this podcast has decided to take this cold shower and treat their child different. And the three of us at this moment have changed the course of a relationship between a parent and child. And for the three of us, that feels real good. The end. That's how we do it, Dan. That's how.
Sure.
Dan, I have no fucking time. I pick and choose very carefully how I spend it, right?
Yeah.
By the way, let's be very transparent with the audience. This is the third time we're supposed to do this. Randomly, Christian and I were engaging with some piece of content on Instagram, and I DM'd him, and I said, hey, can't wait to sit down with your dad on the podcast. And he DM'd me back, and he's like, fuck you, bro, you've canceled twice. And I got scared. I was like, holy fuck. And I hit up you're going to love this, Dan. And I hit up Tyler. Tyler's only passion, well, not only, he's crazy about proper football. Tyler... we're scared about canceling anything in my crazy schedule. So it couldn't even cross my mind that this would ever get canceled because I thought he would fight for it more than my own health checkup. So I hit him up. He's like, yeah, dude, fuck. And I was like, fuck, you need to call us that. Let me go where I'm going with this.
Right.
I, on the other hand, am more of a wrestling and football guy. Like, I'm pumped about Christian and I want American soccer and I'm into soccer cards. But for me, this is actually has nothing to do with him. This is the single conversation I want to have in society. I am writing a book called Perfectly Parented. And at some point, if I ever meet Christian, I'm sure he'll probably, now that I'm picking up some nuances, we may have some real fun over a conversation. I feel like I was parented so well that I have this unbelievable level of guilt and gratitude, which is now transformed in my natural ability to be a great communicator, in that I want to have this conversation at scale and literally want to be the human, the singular human that takes this subject matter on his back, inspires others, co-signs others that are doing it, like you two, because this is the number one conversation to be had.
Yes.
You want to address gun control? You want to address opiate? You want to address depression? And so you want to address everything that's on the tip of the tongue of everybody in society? Let's get to parenting right now. My friends, if you're listening right now, if you want to get to the 5 things that all of us are talking about, gun control, drugs, suicide, Let's get to the way we're fucking parenting kids in this country, which has gotten way, way, way out of hand around the insecurities of parents who use children no different than they use a fucking Mercedes-Benz, a home with 5 extra rooms, their vacations on Instagram. Stop using our children like products.
No. Yeah, I don't know
I'm just
how much I
smiling 'cause
can add.
I love it. I love the passion. I love the message. So it's awesome.
It's a message that's grounded in humanity, right? We've all manifested our careers differently, the three of us, but like in it, it's all like an undertone of like, man, it makes, it's just so fun. Like listening right now to your story a little bit and getting some context here, it just makes so much sense to me. The Slurpee and the two, like I get it. Like I get it so much you can't imagine. I get it so
No,
much
and you mentioned
Dan-
you mentioned Gary
Please.
talking like just how our careers are all in different paths, but truth is truth, and I think it transcends all that. And if I'm completely honest with you, I'm not that interested in wine or trading cards or the New York Jets or whatever, but I'm interested in the truth that you speak that transcends all of that stuff. And yeah, absolutely. I think whether your kid is into sports or into entrepreneurship or into music or whatever, I think it's just truth.
You couldn't have said that better, my friend.
Yeah, and also, one of our shows, Gary, that I did have my son on once.
Okay.
And
What episode number?
I had my son on.
Do you remember?
Episode 5.
You know that's why. Tyler, by the way, do you know this about me, Dad? Do you know I always put up like do you know how big of the number? Do you know that I got to tell you honestly, this is a very interesting moment. I knew that was the answer in the weirdest way just now. It's why I asked. I don't know if you know how big the number 5 is in my life.
I don't.
I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, but I always take photos with different cool people, and I
I've
always
seen
hold
it.
up my
I've seen that.
hand, and everyone's like,
right.
"What's that
I've seen,
bullshit gang
yeah.
sign?" I'm like, "It's not a gang sign; it's the number 5."
Right.
And I don't know why, but I just weirdly knew you were going to say 5 just now. I don't know if we caught that on film, but like, that was cool. Keep going.
Yeah. No,
I know that it's 5 because that's the one. I mean, the Christian episode is the one that always continues to get liked and whatever
of course.
today, despite that we're
Global
12, 13
global
episodes in
superstars
there.
are global superstars.
but
That's
I'm
the way
gonna.
it is.
Sure.
But Dan, and you can also bring up. You talked about the conversation that you were listening to me have with Christian last year when he was going through a tough time, and how I didn't let him lean on any excuses.
The end.
Yeah, and that's episode 3, I believe, which was called "keine Ausreden," which is a German phrase. I don't speak German, but Marc and Christian obviously do, and it just means no excuses. On that episode, I brought up how Marc and I obviously coached together. We would room together when we were traveling, and so I'd hear conversations, or at least half of conversations, when Marc was talking to Christian, and Christian's maybe complaining about, this hurts or that hurts, or the
thing.
session,
all this normal shit,
whatever.
the coach, the circumstance, the weather, the
Sure.
fucking, the girl, like whatever.
And Marc is saying, Christian, you got to show up tomorrow, and you got to be locked into training and blah, 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 and just kind of hitting him with that stuff. And then he'd hang up with Christian, and he'd just lean over to me and be like, he's got it tough right now. But he was never letting on those things to Christian,
Listen,
never letting Christian make excuses out of those things.
I've got two builds on this. Build number 1. The only thing I heard nothing that you just said, because the only thing that's been going through my mind for the last minute and 9 seconds is that I want to make sure more people listen to this episode than episode number 5, because I'm that competitive. Number 2, in the other part of my brain that was listening to every word of you, I grew up with a mother who never complained once, so much so, and by the way, this is my mother, who lost her mother at 5, who grew up in the Soviet Union, the worst fucking place of all time, who came to this country with nothing, who raised the 3 of us with no help. I still don't know how to do laundry because she did it all she did everything. And in my life, I have never heard my mother complain, to the point that when I got into the world, I guess, at some level, post school in the cocoon of family life, my visceral reaction to any complaint about anything is extraordinary. And by the way, the only thing that happens in societies that are prosperous like America is complaining. One of the jokes I make about is people complaining about the wrong milk at Starbucks. This was supposed to be almond milk, not like the dumb shit that people complain about. And I actually believe that accountability and and is literally accountability and lack of excuses. And that framework is the biggest and quickest way to actual happiness. That expectations and believing that outside sources dictate is what leads to people being unhappy. If I ever thought as an American entrepreneur that George Bush or Bill Clinton or Barack Obama or Donald Trump had any fucking impact on me, I'd be a fucking loser.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's like, well, the president, well, the boss, the governor, the board, the club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, getting back to hold on, Vis. Let me finish here.
Yeah.
Getting back to this no excuses. When we first moved to Germany, when Christian was 15, I went over with him, and the first thing I learned in German, or wanted to learn in German, was no excuses. So it's kind of ausreden is German for no excuses, and I posted it on our wall in the living room where we in a little apartment we were living in, and I told my son, I said, this is how you're going to make it.
Period. I believe that shit, man.
And so he would not come home because, listen, you're learning a new language. You're in a new country.
It's tough.
It's tough.
It's tough.
And I knew it was going to be tough.
But I apologize for interrupting because I'm just so excited. But shouldn't the ambition of being one of the great soccer football players in the world and play in the English Premier League and be the American boy that brings Americans, I don't know what his ambitions were, but can we finally have this conversation in the world? Shouldn't living a 1% life require 1% circumstances and actions? Like this notion that it's going to be easy to be an all-time great in anything. No. I sacrificed my entire childhood to be a great entrepreneur. Just for the record, I have deep-rooted shit because I was not a normal child. I worked every day of my fucking life. Just so everybody's like, I'm happy, but like, I got shit. Everyone has shit.
Yeah.
Of course, how could you want to be one of the great? How is that? How do people not understand?
The difficulties are going to be there.
Everyone's looking at your son right now, who's in America, who's a soccer player, and it's like, oh, lucky, awesome, good for him, all good stuff. Do they want to go to Germany at 15 and fucking have that culture shock, or do they want to go to the prom?
Exactly.
Or do they want to hook up with Sally, or do they with a Visco girl, or like what do they want? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Enough. You want to be fucking LeBron? Bleed like LeBron. You want to be Beyonce? Bleed like Beyonce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was something.
Enough. Enough.
I mean, I'll never forget, those first few months, and just not allowing him to make an excuse or to say,
dwelling is fucking
suck it up,
cancer.
Get up in the morning. If this is what you want, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah. And it's not, for anybody who's listening who might be confused, who's saying, well, how's that any different than the person yelling at the back of the car after? It's not that. It's accountability versus ridicule. There's a reason those two words exist. They're different.
Well, and I think it's also, because I think also what you can do with that kid that doesn't want to get up and doesn't want to do these things, that's okay. Like, you don't have to be in the top 1% of soccer players in this country.
Of course.
And you don't have to get up right now, but you have to understand that it's like your actions have consequences. And so you need to decide what it is that you want and then act accordingly.
We live in a world that people's actions do not match the ambitions coming out of their mouth.
Sure. Yeah.
The end.
And you can change either. You can change your actions,
Correct.
or you can change your ambition.
Correct.
I think either is an option.
Let me give you an example.
Think anybody.
Let me give you an example. My son is like, I'm gonna dunk, and I'm like, look, already he's 7. I'm like, listen, man, mommy and daddy, we're not you guys. I'm not sure we're giving you the DNA for that. I'm like, look, do your thing. And I had this crazy combo. Like, somebody overheard it and was like, that's weird. They thought I was like crushing dreams. And the combo ended with me saying, look, I think you could be a really, really awesome intramural city league player, right? And like, he was like, he's 6 at the time, 5 at the time. He's like, what is that even? I don't know if he even knows the city league basketball. Yeah. Like, I'm like, look, D3 shitty squad, 3-point shooter, maybe, like, Yeah. But here's what's interesting about that. A father or a mother that says that to a kid, do you know how many people told me that I couldn't, I didn't give up or said, oh, my mom and dad or others said I couldn't. That got me more fired up. I'm like, I'm going to fucking stick it to everybody. That was my structure. To your point there, like this notion that you can be LeBron, baby. You know, like the thought of like that conversation, that's doing a lot of damage. And to your point, when you're 14-year-old who look, that 11 to 16-year-old range gets real interesting to me because these kids start changing. And all of a sudden, the 13-year-old guy, just cliche stories, the 13-year-old guy who's going to be the next fucking Mbappe, that's what he thinks, all of a sudden grew 6 inches, took his braces off, and the cutest girl at his camp thinks he's cute, and his chemicals changed. You know, his world just changed.
It changes.
And if he then changes, and all of a sudden he doesn't want to be Mbappe, well, guess what? That's life too.
Yeah.
But take it from somebody who went through high school where all of a sudden I also grew and I was charismatic and I had things and I thought it was more fun to go to sleep at 8:30 p.m. on a Friday instead of going out with cool chicks because I wanted to wake up at 5 a.m. to do a flea market. This is real talk now.
Yeah.
Well, then there's no mistake of why I got here. This is not by accident. This is not luck. This is I put in the work, and it's because it was interesting to me. It was more interesting to me to go to Flemington's flea market than to go out with Pam Moses.
Yeah. Gary, it's all about distractions. And in this country, there's so many distractions. And if kids aren't willing to, buckle down and just focus in on really what they want, it's just not going to happen.
And we need to be, as parents, not to demonize distractions, right? Because we as a parent in Long Island want them to be in the professional lacrosse league because we think Paul Rabble's amazing. But what they actually love is actually comic books. And actually their destiny would have been to be a great comic book designer or flipper. So we need to make sure that we quantify distractions. Are they distractions or are they actually, you see where I'm going?
I got you.
And I know you agree. That's why I'm jumping in.
No.
Or
Yeah,
is that
100%.
distraction actually, because do you know how many first and second generation Asian, Indian, Eastern European kids were actually destined to be the great artists of our time, but were boring doctors, lawyers, and engineers?
Yeah.
Because that music thing was a distraction, but what you were telling the next fucking Chance the Rapper was that was a distraction, and then she decided to become a lawyer. When I walk in New York City and I look at 40, 50, and 60-year-olds, and I just look at them, do you know in my mind, like in society, just walking, I always look at them like, I do this. This is weird. This is how I think. Man, I wonder if that person right there is actually the greatest music executive of all time, but their parents made them become an engineer.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I literally walk that way. That was the great gift that my parents gave me. We were first generation immigrants. Every Russian kid had to be good at school. And if you were the biggest loser, you went to NYU, but really you should go to Harvard. I fucking went to Mount Ida College because a postcard came in the mail because I was trying not to even go to college because I wanted to go into my dad's liquor store at 15. They didn't impose the way out on me. They allowed me, my mom, and then my dad. The great thing they did was they created accountability. Dan, what you were referencing was accountability. My parents watched me. They saw that I was a shit student, which was an enigma for immigrants. They were all good students. and they said, cool, you're a shit student? Guess what? Happy 14th birthday. From now on, every weekend and every summer vacation and every spring break and every winter break and every Columbus Day and every Martin Luther King, you're going in the car with dad at 7 a.m. and you're going to work because guess what? You're not getting a piece of paper that's going to give you a fluff job. You're a fucking loser student. You're going to have to learn how to work. And in that accountability, they changed the trajectory of my happiness.
Yeah.
And there's a version of that in soccer, which is instead of trying to get your kid to your kid's showing you that they're not committed. And you're saying, oh, they're only 14, they don't know better. That's bullshit. They're a fucking human being.
You're ultimately robbing them of an opportunity to do something else. I think that a lot when you're... Yeah.
Correct.
So whether that's
let's
music,
play this out because I can see it's
whatever.
resonating with you guys, and it's a good picture to paint everybody. You're 14-year-old who loves soccer and who's dominant, who's fast because your grandfather was fast one day, and like he has showing you that now he wants to be a rapper, and you're saying that he doesn't get it and he needs a little discipline and he's just a kid. No, he's a human. He's showing you. Let me promise you, the 1% that makes it to the league never wavered. Like you can't. And then you're robbing. To your point, Dan, you're robbing them because maybe actually you thought that they're supposed to be Felix Joao, right? Joao Felix, right? Like that's who that you want them to be, and really who they're going to be is P. Diddy. But since you blew out your knee, in junior high and couldn't make it, I mean, stop it. Start listening and stop imposing.
Yeah, well said. And this, I mean,
question. I do have a question. What do you do? Where's kind of the balance? If I think about kind of Angela Duckworth, if you're familiar with her at all, and like this idea of grit and like getting your kid to kind of push through difficulty, because if they're not into soccer,
let me promise you what the most difficult thing a kid could go through at 14 in this scenario, and I appreciate where you're going with it. So either you make them push through and, hey, you started soccer, you finish it, you know, or you actually let them get real difficulty, which looks like this. Because when you make that kid do that, it's fake difficulty. All of a sudden, you're the entity that's pushing against them. Or you actually let them go difficult, which is they quit the soccer team, they try to be a rapper, they hang out with loser friends for 6 months, they get 8 listens on SoundCloud, they lost their friends from soccer because now they're still in that clique. Now they're in difficulty. Now grit actually kicks in. Because what you have to layer grit along with is merit. The merit of consequences. The truth. Back to your point, Dan. What is scary to me about grit, interpreted literally, is it leads to bad behavior from one man's point of view. I could be wrong. Where you create a fake environment where you're the enemy as the parent and the whole thing is convoluted. I think having a kid who's as an athletic scholar who then takes a creative field or a cool thing or wants to smoke weed or whatever the fuck, and my employees, 3 of them are in the room right now. They know what I do. I don't micromanage my employees at all. I live my truth. I don't make them do shit. I just let them fail, analyze, and then I try to help when they're truly at rock bottom, if I can. You don't let your kid die of drug use.
No, yeah.
But you absolutely, I think real perseverance and real grit is when they died on their own sword. You didn't allow them to use you as the excuse, and you've suffocated excuses because now you're like, well, you chose to do that. Yeah. I thought you were going to be Gunna. I thought you were going to be a big time rapper. Looks like the market said no.
That's parenting.
Yeah, I agree, brother. I agree.
And Dan has, I call him Vis, his last name is Visser, but Dan's got three little ones now. So, 3 little ones. Yeah. So,
and Dan, you know this. How young are they?
4, 2, and 5 months.
And you know this, and I'm at 10 and 7, and you're further along. You know this. All your theories you had on this and judgment you had on parents 7, 8, 9 years ago, all of a sudden, these cute little butts are running around your house, and you're like, wait a minute. It was easy to say that about the Thompsons, but I fucking love this little 4-year-old. It's super hard. It doesn't make it any less right.
Correct.
One of the things I tell parents, like my friends, I'm like, look, it's super fun to be on a podcast right now and shit on parenting. Yeah. I'm having a ball right now. It's totally different when it's the 2 of mine. However, I remind myself as it's happening, I'm like, okay, this is not as easy as shitting on a cliche rich parent that's listening to the podcast and the soccer show. This is much harder. I know these 2. They're mine. Right. However, it doesn't make this less right.
Yeah.
And where this really goes is into judgment of other parenting about your parenting. I'm just going to say this as a wrap up. My levels of giving a fuck on somebody's opinion on my parenting from their perspective of my children is 0. That's very cute that you have an opinion. And that starts with my mother, who's the best, by the way, doesn't have any judgment. She does. She just doesn't share it. Definitely stranger. I mean, I laugh when people get crippled by judgment from an anonymous social media post about their parent. Like, you don't know me. You don't know my kids. We throw around judgment of each other's parenting at a level. Judgment is such poison. It's poisoning our culture right now, politically, and it's definitely poisoned parenting. The rolling of the eyes or the snickering or the eyes, hey, how about the passive? Let's talk about this. You guys have seen this more than me, but this is a picture I want to paint. How about the parent that's a little bit more aligned with us, comes into a new town, has a fairly solid athlete, good player, good, upper middle class level, comes on a team. She or he decides off of an incident, a play, an end of a game to be a little bit more even-keeled. But then the eyes from the other parents that are in this alpha suburb make the pressure of like, whoa, wait a minute. Where I used to come from, it was okay to be kind of even-keeled, but I was even-keeled right now, and we lost 2-1. And not that I said it's okay, it doesn't matter, but I was like kind of in the middle. Mm-hmm. But everybody around me just gave me eyes of like, go fuck yourself. We should have won this game. Like, we need your kid. Da-da-da. It's all about judgment.
Yeah.
The ability to not care about other people's opinions is the singular gateway to happiness.
True. Vis, are we ready to wrap up?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think this was good. This was fun for me.
Yeah, and
Thanks, Vis. I
regardless, how we end up editing and putting this on our show, Vis. I mean, for me as a parent, still, I'm turning 51 this month, so I'm just to be here and make this trip out to New York City has been great because I learn every day, and I know we talk about this a lot on our show. Once you stop listening,
it's over.
It's over.
It's over.
Yeah, it's over. So I'd like to end on that, and hopefully the parents listening now recognize that as well. Once you stop listening, it's over. Episode 18, Soccer Unplugged. Peace.
And I'm sorry because I'm such a loudmouth.
Ah.
I want to jump in here because you inspired me.
Go ahead.
You said once you stop listening, and we said it's over, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I will argue that the singular current vulnerability of parenting in modern society, and this is a blanket statement, obviously not for every parent, obviously, is they haven't even started listening. Mm-hmm. We do not listen to our children. We think we know better. We think they're children. And it is really too bad. It's really too bad. So as inspiring as your ending was, which was, because you just inspired me to say this, I will even add another thing, which is please parent, please maybe start the process of listening. Because I have a funny feeling when it comes to kids, especially in youth sports, this is not about an issue of stopping to listen. This is an issue of you haven't even started listening to your kid.
Dan,
Yeah, good.
Great stuff, huh? Unbelievable. Gary, I want to thank you and for having me out here today. And I wish you all the successes, although, obviously what you've done has been
health and happiness is something I
health,
wish
happiness.
everybody. Nobody can have enough of either of those two.
Hey, and enjoy your kids, man.
Thank you. Yeah,
all
that's
right.
for sure.
Thank you,
that's
most important.
Thanks for having me on, Dan.